Good day and welcome to today's class. Today's class is a continuation of our previous classes on SS3 further mathematics. At the last class, I introduced you to the curriculum for those of you in SS3, where I gave you the different themes and the topics associated with that. SS3 mathematics is the last stage of your knowledge in Introduction to Engineering Mathematics. And we have looked at the various topics where we agreed that approximately 6 topics will be taught in first term, 6 in second term, 6 in first and second term. Owing to the fact that third term you are to enter for your SSCE examinations. So just like I promised, I shall be taking the topics one at a time, beginning with inequalities. So in today's class, we shall be looking at inequalities. So under inequalities, we shall, at the end of the class, achieve the following objective: that we should, by the end of the class, students should be able to solve quadratic inequalities and inequalities in 2 dimensions. In SS2, you were taught inequalities in 1 dimension. In today's class, in SS3, you shall be introduced into quadratic inequalities and inequalities in 2 dimensions. So, what is quadratic inequality? A quadratic inequality is an inequality where one side is a quadratic expression and the other side is a 0. Examples of quadratic inequalities. Quadratic inequalities can be expressed in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is greater than 0, or ax squared plus bx plus c is less than 0, or ax squared plus bx plus c is greater than or equal to 0, and ax squared plus bx plus c is less than or equal to 0. So I did explain to you that a quadratic inequality is an inequality where one side is said to be a quadratic expression and the other side is said to be a 0. So you can have it in this form. And how do we know it's quadratic? Quadratic in the sense that the highest power of the variable is said to be 2, where a, b, and c are said to be constants. So, how do we solve quadratic inequalities? We shall take an example. Example 1 says we should solve the inequality x squared plus 2x minus b is less than or equal to 0. The first step in solving a quadratic inequality is to find the zeros of the inequality, whereby if you are to represent it graphically, it gives you a graph. For example, it gives you a U-shaped graph. A quadratic inequality of this form, as we discussed in SS2, for it to be a U-shaped graph, you will have it that the coefficient of x squared is said to be positive. So for it to be a U-shaped graph, you have it to be ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. For the quadratic graph to be an N-shaped graph, as in this form, you have the equation to be minus ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So all we are going to do is to find the zeros of the inequality. Finding the zeros of the inequality entails that you get the intercept of the graph on the x-axis. So that gives us the zero of the inequality. So by factorizing this quadratic expression, we shall get the zeros of the inequality. So let's do that. Let's find the zeros of the inequality. So I'm going to equate the quadratic expression to be 0. So this becomes x squared plus 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. So you then factorize this. This gives us look for two terms. Now, when you multiply them together, it gives you the product of the first term and the last term. And when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. And that should be plus 4x and minus 2x. So when you multiply this together, it gives you minus 8x squared. And when you add them together, it gives you plus 2x. So substitute or replace it with the middle term. This becomes x squared plus 4x minus 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. So what we are trying to do now is to get the values of x. So when you factorize this, you discover that x is common when you factorize out x in the first two terms. You have x into bracket x plus 4. And looking at the next two terms, you agree with me that minus 2 is common. So you have minus 2 into bracket. When you divide this term by minus 2, you are left with x. And you divide minus 8 by minus 2, it gives you plus 4, which is equal to 0. So factorizing it further, you have x plus 4 into x minus 2 is equal to 0. And you have x plus 4 is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. That means that x is equal to minus 4, or x is equal to plus 2. So I have gotten the zeros of the inequality. So that means that this is a graph. If this is a graph, we have our graph to be in this form, where this point is said to be minus 4 and this point is said to be plus 2. My diagram is not drawn to scale, so this is the graph of x squared plus 2x minus 8. Now, the question says we should solve the inequality. Solving the inequality simply means we should find the region where this equation is said to be less than or equal to 0. And that region is said to be the region that falls under the 0 mark. So from this point to this point along the y-axis, x is said to be positive, while from the equator or the middle point to minus infinity, you have x to be negative. So x is said to be less than or equal to 0 from this region downwards. This intercept divides this parabola into three regions. You have this as region 1, while from here to this other place is said to be region 2, and here to here is said to be region 3. Region 1 and 3 are said to be above the origin, which shows you that at these 2 points, the parabola is said to be greater than or equal to 0. But at region 2, we have it that this parabola is less than or equal to 0. And that is the solution to our answer, to our question. The solution to the question now is minus 4 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than or equal to 2, which is this region 2. And I'm going to shade it if you are to represent it graphically. Kindly like my videos as you watch, while I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on TikTok and YouTube at my lesson teacher Maths. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded, while you can use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. You can also share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. Let's take example 2. In example 2, we are asked to solve the quadratic inequality minus x squared plus 4x minus 4 is greater than or equal to 0. Now, mere looking at the graph, the equation, this should inform you that it's going to be an N-shaped graph. Reason being that the coefficient of x squared is said to be minus. So minus entails you're going to have an N-shaped graph. If it is positive, it shows you that you are going to have a U-shaped graph in this form. So what we are going to do now is to try and factorize the quadratic expression, find the zeros of the inequality, which gives us the region where the parabola cuts across the x-axis. So how do we do that? You look for two terms. Now when you multiply them together, it gives you the product of the first term and the last term. And when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. So if you look at it, minus x squared times minus 4 gives you plus 4x squared. So those two terms are said to be plus 2x and plus 2x. So I'm going to substitute it with the middle term. This becomes minus x squared plus 2x plus 2x minus 4 is equal to 0. Now what we are trying to do is to get the zeros of the inequality. So factorize out what is common in the first two terms. You would agree with me that minus x is common. And when you divide here by minus x, you have x minus 2. Also look at the next two terms. What is common? Plus 2 is common. Into bracket, divide here by plus 2, you have x minus 2 is equal to 0. So since what we have in the bracket is common, we'll still factorize it again. This gives us x minus 2 into bracket minus x plus 2 is equal to 0. So it therefore means that x minus 2 is equal to 0, or minus x plus 2 is equal to 0. And when you make x the subject of the formula in both sides, you have x is equal to plus 2 and or x is equal to plus 2. So we have it to be x is equal to positive 2 twice. Okay, so representing this on your graph, this gives you this. We have already concluded that it's going to be an N-shaped graph, and this is how your parabola is going to look like, where this point that it cuts across the x-axis is said to be 2. So this is what you will get, and this is said to be the solution of the inequality. We are asked to solve where this is greater than or equal to 0. So we have it that x is greater than or equal to plus 2. So this is the solution to our equation, and graphically this is how it is being represented. Can you like my videos as you watch? While I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on Facebook and on TikTok at my lesson teacher Matt. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded. While I recommend you use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. You can also share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. Example 3, we are asked to solve the inequality 2x squared plus x is greater than or equal to x squared minus 4x minus 6. So what we are going to do in this case, we are going to collect like terms, move all the quadratic expressions to the left hand side, while we allow 0 to be on the right hand side. So when you do that, you are going to have something like 2x squared minus x squared plus x plus 4x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 0. When you subtract or add terms to an inequality, it does not change the sense of the inequality. So when you simplify further, this gives you x squared plus 5x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 0. At this point, we have expressed it to be greater than or equal to 0. we shall then find the zero of the inequality. Already, since the coefficient of x squared is positive, we are going to have a U-shaped parabola. So let's look for the zeros of the inequality. This becomes x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Look for two terms that when you multiply them together, it gives you the product of the first term and the last term. And when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. So those two terms are said to be plus 3x and plus 2x. So we are going to replace them with the middle term to change it from a 3-term expression to a 4-term expression so that we can be able to factorize them in twos. So this becomes x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6 is equal to 0. Now factorize them in twos. Look at the first two terms. What is common? X is common. So this becomes x into bracket. When you factorize out x, what is left? You have x plus 3. Do same to the second term. Plus 2 is common. So we have plus 2 into bracket. Divide plus 2x by 2. You have x plus. Divide 6 by 2. You have 3 is equal to 0. Since x plus 3 is still common in both terms, we then factorize it out. X plus 3 into bracket, and when you do that, what you'll be left with is x plus 2 is equal to 0. So we have it that x plus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. So when you make x the subject of the formula, you have x is equal to minus 3 or x is equal to minus 2. So representing this, we are asked to solve that x squared plus 5x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 0. So we have gotten the zeros of the inequality, which is said to be at point minus 3 and minus 2. So this is going to give us something like this. Our origin is going to be here. So this is how our graph will be. Since this is a sketch, let's take this to be minus 2 and this is minus 3. So you discover that we are asked to find the region where this equation is said to be greater than or equal to 0. Now, this intercept divides the graph into 3 portions. One is that is the region where x is less than minus 3, and the second region is where we have minus 3 is less than x and x is less than minus 2, and the third region, which is from here to infinity, we have it to be x is greater than minus 2. So we are asked to find the region where this parabola is greater than or equal to 0. And just like I told you, this region 2, is the region where the parabola is less than 0. So region 1 and region 3 is said to be the solution of the inequality, where we have it that minus 3 is less than or equal to x, and x is greater than or equal to minus 2. So this gives you the solution of the inequality, which is at region 1 and region 3. Kindly like my videos as you watch. While I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so. Also follow me on TikTok and on Facebook at My Lesson Teacher Maths. You can also turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded. While I recommend you use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. You can also share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. So we shall now take more examples. Example 4 says we should solve bracket x plus 3 into bracket x plus 2 is greater than 0. Okay, just like I said, find the zeros of the inequality. We have x plus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. So we have it that x is equal to minus 3, or x is equal to minus 2. Representing this on the number line, you have minus 2, and let this point be minus 3, while this is minus 2. So this gives you the intercept, and we're looking at the region where x is greater than 0. So region 1, x is greater than 0, and region 3, x is greater than 0. But in region 2, you discover that, sorry, the parabola is greater than 0, but in region 3, 2, the parabola is said to be less than 0 because it falls under the midpoint. Okay, so and at this region, y is said to be less than 0. So we are asked to solve this, meaning find the region where where the parabola is greater than 0, and we said it is at region 1 and region 3. So we have it that minus, the solution now becomes minus 3 is less than x, and x is greater than minus 2. So it is at this region that we say x is greater, or that gives us the solution to this inequality, region 1 and region 3. So let me know what you think about the solution to this question at the comment section, and I'd love to know where you are watching me from. Kindly like my videos as you watch, while I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on TikTok and on Facebook at My Lesson Teacher Math. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded, while I recommend you use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. You can also share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. We shall now take example 5. Example 5 says we should solve the inequality 9x squared plus 3x is less than or equal to 2. So we shall first find the zeros of the inequality. That is to say, 9x squared plus 3x is minus 2 is less than or equal to 0. So finding the zeros of the inequality, we have 9x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. Look for two terms that when you multiply them together, it gives you the product of the first term and the last term. And when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. The product of the first term and the last term is said to be minus 18x squared. So what are those two terms? We have plus 6x and minus 3x, such that when you add them together, it gives you plus 3x, which is the middle term. So you are going to substitute the middle term with these two factors you have gotten. So this becomes 9x squared plus 6x minus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. Now, the essence of we substituting it is to change it from a 3-term expression to a 4-term expression so that we can then factorize them in 2's, which we were unable to do when it was a 3-term expression. So looking at the first two terms, what is common? 3 is common because 3 is a factor of 9 and 6. So 3x is common. So you have 3x into, when you factorize out 3x from 9x squared, you're left with 3x. You divide plus 6x by plus 3x, you have plus 2, close the bracket. Looking at the next two terms, what is common? Minus 1 is common. So you have minus 1 into bracket. Divide minus 3x by minus 1, you have 3x. Divide minus 2 by minus 1 gives you plus 2, which is equal to 0. You factorize again, this becomes 3x plus 2 into bracket 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. So it therefore means that 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, or 3x minus 1 is equal to 0. When you multiply two expressions together to be equal to 0, it therefore means that either of the two are said to be equal to 0. One is equal to 0, or both of them are zeros. So that's why we have it to be like this, which gives us two linear equations. So this becomes 3x is equal to minus 2, or 3x is equal to 1. We have it that x is equal to minus 2 over 3, or x is equal to 1 over 3. So when you represent that on the graph, you are going to have something of this kind, where this point, the intercept is said to be at minus 2 over 3, and the intercept at this point is said to be 1 over 3. So the question says we should solve the inequality where this is less than or equal to 0. And it is at this region 2, that the parabola is less than or equal to 0, because the value of y at that point or at that region is said to be less than 0. So the solution now becomes minus 2 over 3 is less than or equal to x, and x is less than or equal to 1 over 3. So this is the solution to this inequality. Kindly like my videos as you watch, while I recommend you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on Facebook and on TikTok at my lesson teacher Matt. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded. You can also use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand, while I recommend you share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. We shall now take example 6. In example 6, we are asked to, using the number line, graph the solution set of x squared minus 4x minus 5 is greater than 0. So just like we did in other examples, we shall first of all look for the zeros of the inequality, which is x squared minus 4x minus 5 is equal to 0. Look for two terms that when you multiply them together, it gives you the product of the first term and the last term. And when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. So the product of the first term and the last term gives us minus 5x squared. So what are those two numbers that when you multiply them together, it gives you minus 5x squared, and when you add them together, it gives you minus 4x. This should be minus 5x and plus 1x. Yes. So I'm going to substitute this for what we have in the middle term. So this becomes x squared minus 5x plus x minus 5 is equal to 0. I have now made it a four-term expression. So factorize them in twos. X is common. We have x into bracket, x minus 5. What is common in the next two terms? Plus 1 is common. Since nothing else is common, into x minus 5, which is equal to 0. Factorizing them again, you have x minus 5 into x plus 1, which is equal to 0. So this becomes x minus 5 is equal to 0, or x plus 1 is equal to 0, x is equal to plus 5, or x is equal to minus 1. So we are asked to, using number line, so this is our number line, let's call this our 0 mark, and this is point minus 1, and this is point positive 5. So we are asked to find the region where this parabola is greater than 0. Now, since it is a U-shaped graph, so it's going to be at this region. where the value is said to be greater than 0 and at this region. So we are asked to use number line and to graph the solution. So we have it that the solution now becomes x minus 1 is less than x and x is greater than positive 5. So this gives us the solution to this inequality. Kindly like my videos as you watch. While I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on TikTok and on Facebook at my lesson teacher Matt. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded. You can also use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. While I recommend you share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. We shall now take example 7. Example 7 says we should graph the solution set of x squared minus 36 is less than 0. So we shall look for the zeros of the inequality. So we have it to be x squared minus 36 is equal to 0. Now this gives us difference of two squares, where x squared minus 6 squared is equal to 0. And when you factorize difference of two squares, you will have x minus 6 into x plus 6 is equal to 0. So we have it to be x minus 6 is equal to 0, or x plus 6 is equal to 0. So we have it to be x is equal to positive 6, or x is equal to be negative 6. So we have it to x is equal to plus or minus 6. So this is going to give us something like this, where this is said to be minus 6 and this is positive 6. And we have to find the region where x is less than 0. So this is said to be our region. And how do we write it in set notation? We have it to be minus 6 is less than x and x is less than 6, positive 6. So this is said to be the solution set of the inequality. Kindly like my videos as you watch. While I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on TikTok and on Facebook at my lesson teacher Matt. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded. You can also use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. While I recommend you share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. We shall now take example 8. Example 8 says, solve the inequality x squared plus 10x plus 9 is greater than 0. So we shall also find the zeros of the inequality. We have x squared plus 10x plus 9 is equal to 0. From a 3-term expression, we shall take it to a 4-term expression so as to be able to factorize the quadratic expression. So how do we do that? You look for two terms that when you multiply them together, it gives you the product of the first term and the last term. And when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. So the product of the first term and the last term is said to be plus 9x squared. And two terms that when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. And multiplying them gives you the product of the first term and the last term. It's said to be 9 plus 9x and plus 1x. So we are going to replace it with the middle term, which does not change the sense of the equation. So you have x squared plus x, which is plus 1x, plus 9x plus 9 is equal to 0. Now we shall factorize them in twos. Looking at the first two terms, what is common? X is common. So we have it at x into, when you factorize x squared, you're left with x plus 1. What is common here? You have plus 9 being common into x plus 1 is equal to 0. So factorizing them again, you have x plus 1 into brackets x plus 9 is equal to 0. And this is x plus 1 is equal to 0, or x plus 9 is equal to 0. For when two expressions are being multiplied to get 0, it therefore means that one is either 0 or both of them are zeros. So it is either this is equal to 0 or this is equal to 0. So what is the value of x? You have x to be equal to minus 1, or x is equal to minus 9. So we have gotten the zeros of the inequality, or the intercept of x-axis on the intercept of the parabola on x-axis. So that is going to give us something like this, where this is minus 1 and this is minus 9 on the number line. So we are looking for the region where this parabola is greater than 0. Now, if you look at it, it is at this region that is greater than 0, and at this region. At this region, we said it is less than 0. So how do we write that? We have it that minus 9 is less than x, and x is greater than minus 1. So this is how you represent it in set notation, and graphically, this is how it is being represented. So let me know how you feel about this question, and if you have a contrary answer to my solutions, you can share it with me, and it will be welcomed. Kindly like my videos as you watch. While I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on Facebook and on TikTok at my lesson teacher Matt. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded. You can also use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. While I recommend you share the link with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. We shall now take example 9. Example 9 says we should write the solution set for x squared minus 4x plus 4 is greater than 0. Now, we can do this by looking for the zeros of the inequality. That is x squared minus 4x plus 4 is equal to 0. Look for two terms that when you multiply them together, it gives you the product of the first term and the last term. And when you add them together, it gives you the middle term. So that gives us minus 2x minus 2x. So we replace it with the middle term. This becomes x squared minus 2x minus 2x plus 4 is equal to 0. Factorizing them in twos, considering the first two terms, x is common. And when you factorize x from them, you have x minus 2. Looking at the next two terms, minus 2 is common. When you factorize out minus 2, you have x minus 2, which is equal to 0. Now, looking at this and this, you discover that x minus 2 is still common. That is what is in the bracket. You equally factorize it out, x minus 2 into bracket. And when you do that, you'll be left with x minus 2 being equal to 0. So we have it that x minus 2 is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. At this point, you can tell me that x is equal to plus 2 twice. Now, representing this on the graph, this is a U-shaped graph. And since x is 2 twice, it means that x cuts across, the parabola cuts across the x-axis only at this point. So you have something like this, where this point is said to be plus 2. And the question says we should find the region where this is greater than 0. So it is at this region and at this region. So at this point, you have it at minus infinity is greater, is less than x, and x is less than positive infinity. So that brings us to the end of today's class. In today's class, we have been able to solve quadratic inequalities. In our next class, we shall look at inequalities in two variables. This is inequalities in one variable where we have just values of x, one unknown, x. But in the next class, we shall solve quadratic inequalities where we have two unknowns, x and y. Kindly like my videos as you watch. Well, I recommend that you subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so, and also follow me on TikTok and on Facebook at My Lesson Teacher Maths. Turn on the notification bell so as to be notified whenever a new video is being uploaded. You can also use the comment section to interact with me on areas that are still difficult for you to understand. Well, I recommend you share the links with your friends and families so that they can also benefit from our daily classes. See you tomorrow, where we shall be taking inequality in two dimensions. Do have a nice day.